Thank you very much for joining. Welcome to the lecture number 26 of machine learning course. In this session, we are going to extend our discussion on the SVM, and we are going to see the soft margin SVM and some kernel functions. So these are the very important things because SVM that was actually proposed earlier is actually a kind of initial model. But for the real life thing, sometime we get stuck if we go with such a nice but difficult model. So we see that what is the soft margin SVM and how it can help us to go ahead with that. Okay, all right, let us quickly see that what we have seen in the last class so that everything is revised for you. So in the last class, please focus everything that if somebody asks you that what is SVM, you should tell in this particular way. If you have any question, please ask so that you don't have any doubt on that. Very important thing, okay? What is SVM? Because SVM is most of the time is going to be asked from you. If somebody is taking your interview, most likely that he would ask something about the SVM. So it is a linear decision machine. What do I mean by this? That there is a linear equation, and you know that W transpose X is a linear equation. So W transpose X plus B, it sees the what is the sign of the W transpose X plus B. So when we talk about the sign, what does it mean? That there is a decision boundary, and the item is either the on the one side or the other side. Because any if it is a if you consider any linear equation, so into the higher dimensional space, it becomes a hyper plane. So if there is a hyperplane, so there would be two sides. In one side, there would be there could be the things which are positive. You can take them as a of one class, and another side you can take the items of the different class. So this idea. So the idea of SVM is this that it uses this particular formula, that is a equation of the plane, and try to see what is the sign to tell that what is the classification of a particular item. So if X is X, for example, let's assume that Xi is the example. So you try to see that what is the classification of this particular point of Xi by putting into the this particular formula. You know that we have seen into the previous class that if there is a point, for example, if let's assume that there is a what we have discussed, that let's assume that there is a w1x1 plus w2x2 plus w3x3 dot plus b. Let's assume that this is what the equation of the is equal to 0. Let me say that is equal to 0 be the equation of a plane. Then if any particular point is given, so you can so what I wanted to tell. So if any particular point is given, so there could be three conditions. Okay, if this is the equation of if this is the equation of a plane, and you can represent this equation of the plane by two parameters. You can say that W and B. Using W and B, I'm going to represent this particular plane. So there could be, for a given point, there could be three conditions. Either it is on the plane, then this particular equation, if you put the value of, for example, if the point is xi, you say that xi is what is the first item, then comma what is the xi, what is the second attribute for xi, what is the third attribute, dot. You get all these things, all the attributes, and put into this particular formula. You may be getting 0, you may be getting positive, you may be getting negative numbers. So we say that because because you know that the space is very large, so getting 0 is a kind of thing that it is a very less probable thing. So most of the time you say that if the value is greater than equal to 0, greater than equal to 1, you say that if the value is greater than equal to plus 1, or so you actually include this point also into the two cases. You say that if value is greater than equal to 0, it is going to be the positive item, otherwise it is a negative item. So these three cases you can combine into two cases, and then by any, if the new data point is given, you can find out what the classification by putting this into this particular equation. You know, you know that when there is a equation, so we can write this particular thing in a very compact way by saying that it is W transpose X plus B, as we have seen, as we have written over here. You know that if you want to find out that what is the distance of a particular point, for example, this particular point, what is the distance of this particular point from this particular plane? So you can write the equation into this particular way, that W transpose X divided by uh, L2 norm of the W. So you okay with this? That this is how this equation, we can use this particular equation to find out that what is the distance of a point from a hyperplane. So what is the equation of hyperplane here? What is the equation of the hyperplane here? Equation of the hyperplane, as I told you, that is specified using W and B. Okay. So this is the WNB, and once again, let me tell you that if a new data item is given to you, you find out what are all attributes x1, x2, x3, all attributes, and then you can combine these attributes with the W's, because you know that the W is going to be W1, W2, dot 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 WN, and values you are going to have. So you are going to multiply W term by term multiplication of all the item, and then you are going to add with B with that, and this would be the equation of the if we put is equal to 0, it would be equation of the plane. So this particular W and B actually specified that what is the plane, and for a given point you find out that what are the attribute, and you can find out that what is the side. This particular equation is very important, that tells you that if point is there, then how much distance this particular point is, how much distance this particular point is from the from the this particular given plane. Very importantly, you should also know this, that this SVM, that is a linear decision machine, actually works only if the data is linearly separable. So this was a very interesting thing to know, that it only works when your data is linearly separable. So what do I mean by this? I mean by this that let's assume that the negative points are here, and positive points are here. So you can see that this data is linearly separable. If we see that the data is into two-dimensional space, if we say that data is into two-dimensional space, then this is linearly separable, because we know that if we can draw a line, for example, any particular line, we can separate this into the two parts. So this is the linearly separable data. So SVM works for what? SVM works for the linearly separable data. One very important thing about the SVM is this, that it is a fat margin classifier. So SVM is a linear decision machine that is a fat margin classifier. What do I mean by this? So essentially, it means that since you know that I can draw this particular line as a decision boundary, whether this decision boundary is correct, yes or no? Whether this decision boundary is correct, yes or no? Anybody? Yes, this decision boundary is correct. Why it is correct? Because negative points are one side and positive sides are one side. So it is classifying the things into perfect way. So this decision boundary is correct. But it is the best. Is it the it is the best decision boundary? Then you may think that is there a possibility that having something more. So we have seen in the last class that there is a concept called margin. And margin is going to be this, that you see that what is the nearest point. For example, this is the nearest point. What is the nearest point here? So you see that the nearest point is here. So these are the two distances. Let's assume that this is the 3-unit distance, this is the 2-unit distance. So what is the margin? Margin is the minimum of these two quantities, is going to be the 2. Actually, it is a minimum of all the data item. Okay, for all the data items, actually you have to find out. For all the data point inside your database, you have to find out that what is the minimum distance. So you can by yourself see that if I consider these things, so minimum is because they are going to be more distance over there. So need not to consider all of them. Only considering this particular one is sufficient for this one side. Similarly, into the second side also, that because we want to find out the margin is going to be the minimum one. So considering these things are not going to have any importance, only this is going to be the most nearest point. So we have to find out the minimum out of that. So this is going to be the best strategy as compared to any other method. So what I wanted to tell you is this, that this is a perfect classifier. However, this is a perfect classifier, but this is not a suitable best classifier, because the best classifier would be such, so that can I increase this thing because it is the minimum one? Can I increase this in some way? The answer is this, that if I rotate it some way, for example, even if let's assume that I rotate it and put it into this particular way, you can see that actually by rotation I have introduced some more distance over here. Okay. So you may think that I have introduced something more, so this is better. Similarly, if I move it further, it is going to be even better. But after some time, when this particular line is in between, when this particular line is in between, if I further extend it, then actually from the other side, this, because this was the 2 coming from this thing, it is only coming because this side the distance was 3. If we push the point further, so this becomes less than that particular quantity which is over here. So the margin would actually reflect to this value, that is a smaller value. So we would be into the, we would not be seeing that, we would not be getting any further advantages. So this is an important thing, that this particular kind of classifier gives you the classification boundary in such a way so that the margin is maximized. These are the two things. And with the SVM, the second thing is this, that the margin is maximized. Make sense? Any questions on that? Any questions on that? So SVM is going to give you the classification boundary in this particular way. Make sense? Fine. The two things we have seen till now, that what is SVM? If somebody asks you that what is SVM, then you can say that it is a linear decision machine using this particular formula and seeing the sign which side the item is for the classification. It is a fat margin classifier, means out of the all available choices, for your decision boundary, it selects that decision boundary which actually maximizes the margin. Make sense? Yes. Okay. So if you understand this thing, let me say that, let me write this, that what is this margin? How can I find out the margin? Okay, let me formally write that what is the equation of the margin. So we have few minutes back seen that it is W transpose X plus B divided by mod of W for all data points for all X inside the D, whichever is the minimum value. Okay, let me remove this, as now you understand this. I see that whichever the minimum value makes sense. This is what the margin is. So this SVM actually minimizes this thing, find out the minimum quantity, and you know that this quantity is maximized by the SVM. SVM want to maximize this thing because this is what the margin is. You want to maximize this. So it says that argmax. How it maximizes? By changing the value of W and B, it is going to change this particular quantity. So at the, you know that what is the output of argmax? Our output of argmax is going to be W and B, which actually maximizes this particular quantity. Any questions on that? Atharva, is it clear? That this quantity is the, what is the, for a given W and B, what is the minimum distance? So this quantity is what? It is a margin. Okay, this is the margin. And argmax means what? You change these W so that this quantity is actually maximized. Minimum quantity is maximized, because for any given W and B, you can find the minimum distance. So you want to maximize the minimum distance of a point from the decision boundary. Rachit, is it clear? Rachit, Gauransh. Okay. So in this particular equation, you see that this bottom part actually, that is the mod of W, is it does not involve any X out of that, because into computation it is not involving any X. So what you can do, you can take this part out, and you can say that 1 upon norm of W, and you can remove this part from here. You can say that this part is actually not important over here. You can say that I just wanted to find out this thing. Does it make sense? Okay. Now, when we are into this particular scenario, we have a very important observation, and the observation is this. Let us hold on this particular equation for a few minutes. I told you into the previous class from the very beginning, we are seeing that if I give you a vector, for example, w0, w1, dot, 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 wn, if I give you a vector and I give you a plane, that is w0, x0 plus w1, x1 plus w2, x2, dot, dot, dot is equal to 0. Consider these two things. Consider any vector. And with respect to that vector, I am going to make this particular plane. So, what is the relationship vector and this plane? The answer is that this vector is actually perpendicular on the plane. Is perpendicular on the plane. How can I show this? You can show this by this, that you pick any point on this particular plane. So let's assume that you have any x, that is x1, x0, x1 dot dot dot, any point on that. So if you put into this particular equation, the value becomes what? 0, because this is the equation of the plane. So value becomes 0. If two vectors, and it is term by term multiplication. Term by term multiplication is a dot product, and dot product means what? If there is, you know that if there is a vector A and there is a vector B, and you find out dot product, so it is going to be mod B cos theta. Cos is the angle between them. If this value is 0, you know that the cos 90 is only 0. It means that angle is 90 degree. Whatever their quantities or whatever their amplitudes are, if cos is 0 at the 90. So what is the angle between these two vectors? It is 90 degree. So this is the small proof that tells that if I give you any vector, and you know that W and B specifies this vector only, because they are actually going to give you a vector. So this vector is going to be perpendicular to the plane that has been constructed using this particular thing. Now I wanted to tell you add one more thing to your knowledge, that if I multiply, I think we have discussed in the last class also, that if I multiply this particular vector with a constant, I say that 2w0 plus 2w1 dot dot dot, I create this another vector. So if I ask you that, okay, you know that V and P, let's assume that this is the plane, V and P are actually perpendicular. If I ask you that what is 2V and P, what can you say about them? Let's assume that this is 2V. Okay, so what is the relationship between them? They are also perpendicular. In the same way, 3V and P are also perpendicular. In the same way, KV and P are also perpendicular. Means what? Means what? That if you want to specify a plane, and if you want to specify a plane, so if you want to specify a plane using these W's, so multiplication of any constant is not going to have any effect. Can you understand this? Because it is the same thing, because using this thing also you come up with this particular plane only. Make sense? Make sense? So if you change the values, if you are allowed to change the values of these parameters, so you can just linearly scale this parameter, and you are actually not going to change anything in terms of the decision boundary. So what would happen that, look, let me come to the equation, and then everything will be clear. Just hold on this particular argument. Let's come back to our equation. So this was our equation that we wanted to talk about, that we are going to argmax of WB with respect to the WB, this quantity multiplied by minimum of this quantity. We want to find out the W such that this happens. Here in this equation, we want to minimize this particular quantity. And here there is also a parameter W. So if I want to minimize this particular quantity, so let's assume that you come up with any minimum value. I'm not going to tell you any value. Let's assume, just for sake of argument, let us assume that you get the value 5. So you know that if I multiply all the W's with some value, for example, 0.2, that is less than 1. So what would be the summation now? Summation would get reduced. Do you understand this? If you come up with any minimum value, let's assume that there exists a minimum value for the sake of argument only. Let's assume that there exists a minimum value and that value is 5. So I am telling that instead of using W, you use 0.2 W. 2W would also be the same thing as we have few minutes back seen that it is again going to be the similar kind of decision boundary. So it is also going to satisfy your classification thing, but this value is no more 5. It becomes, because something is multiplied over there, it becomes 1, near about 1 point something. It would be something. It is going to change. It is going to be further minimized. Do you see this phenomena? That if we assume that there is some minimum value, so you can further reduce this by just multiplying with the W, some constant with the W. So ultimately this value vanishes. This is a big problem, because then finding out the right parameter becomes very difficult. It is not possible to find out the right parameter. So from here you can assume that instead of finding out the minimum, we can say we can fix some value. If I fix some value, for example 1, then you cannot change this value. If I say that this value, minimum value is going to be 1, I can say that this value should be equal to 1. This minimum value should be equal. Then you cannot change the W's at some fixed W. You have to stop, because then the value is 1. But if I leave it with you, then all these parameters are going to vanish. Can you see this? So minimum value that actually I wanted to find out, let us fix it to 1. Why? Because we want to find out the values of W. If we don't fix it with any constant value, they are going to vanish, and therefore W's are also going to vanish. And this also comes from this argument that you can see that this minimum value can be anything. It could be 5. For the sake of argument, we have taken 5. Similarly, you can think that let's assume that there is a fixed value that on which the value actually minimizes, because you know that there is a mechanism for this W that can adjust all these things. So let me say that this value is going to be 1. That is a very interesting into the SVM. If this is not there, then designing these kind of system would have been very difficult. Okay, value is 1. Then what happens that this particular part becomes irrelevant, because the value is 1. We have fixed it to the 1. So this particular part actually goes away. So this equation simplifies in this particular way, that we want to find argmax of this particular quantity. Argmax of this quantity is actually argmin of W, because you are putting the W into the denominator of WB, which is written over here. This is what we do into the SVM. Everybody is okay with this? That what we do into the SVM? This is what we do into the SVM. Now let me tell you a few more things. That is also interesting thing. So till now we have seen that what is the SVM, and what is the importance of this W transpose. And this is, that W square is equal to W transpose W is only. W transpose W gives you the W square. Now I want to tell you one more thing that we have discussed in the last class also, that let's assume that the data point is such that it is linearly separable. Okay. And we want to maximize the margin. So to maximize the margin, we should not put the line over here. Instead, we should put the decision boundary over here. Can I put it here? Maybe. Can I put it here? No. Okay. So the best decision boundary that comes out to be this. Okay. This comes out to be this. However, I want to say you something else. That if at this particular point, what is the margin? You can say that this is what the margin is. Okay. This is what the margin is. Can I increase it? So if this is the margin, you take from here, you take this particular distance and you put the line over here. So this particular, just consider these two lines, red line and green line. Which line is better in terms of the margin, red or green? In terms of the margin, which line is better? Red one? Hmm? Because I told you that this is because the green one is here, so this is what the margin is. I told you that increase the margin and put the line over here. So which line is better? Red line is better because it is more, it has more margin. Okay, so if red line is better, then why you are plotting here? You can plot it here. It is even better line, even better line, even better line. So better decision boundaries can be obtained by having these kind of lines at the far apart. So the best line would be at the infinite, best decision boundary would be at the infinite. Is it the right thing? No, because this line is not actually a decision boundary, because all the points are here. How is it is a good decision boundary? But if you only think about the minimization of the maximization of the margin, then this kind of problem is happening. Why it is happening? Because I'm just concentrating that I want to maximize the margin. So only considering that I want to maximize the margin is not a good idea. You should also consider that the classification should also be correct. So if you put this another condition that with this minimization, classification should also be correct, then you cannot take these things, because these lines are actually absurd line. They are not having the right kind of decision. Then you would be only focusing on this particular thing. So apart from this minimization, also have to tell that all the classifications should be correct, and for that this is a condition. Everybody understand this? So this is the theory about the SVM, that along with the minimization of the W, we also want to see that all the points needs to be correctly classified. And this particular thing says, because you know that for the positive point, this would be positive, and Y is also positive, so the value would be 1. For negative points, this value would be negative, and the item is negative. So if you multiply, it is again going to be greater than 0. So if it is not greater than 1, if it is not greater than 1, then what does it mean? It means that that particular point has been not classified well. So we need these kind of two conditions. Using these kind of conditions, we can find out the SVM classifier. So as I told you in the last class, that you can utilize any linear programming mechanism to find out to solve this kind of equation. So first you write down all these equations with respect to the data that is given to you, and then you apply any linear programming solver, and then you can find out what is the optimal value of W and B, and that actually solves your purpose. Any questions till now? Melody. Dishita? No? Excellent. Shashwat? Great. Okay, so now I am going to discuss you a very important part. So what we were telling, that let's assume that the positive examples are here, negative examples are here. Can we apply SVM over here? Yes, why not? We can apply. What would be the decision boundary? This would be the decision boundary. Correct? But you know that sometimes data has outliers. What may happen, that let's assume that there is a one negative training example over here. So if a negative training example is here, and if I ask the SVM to find out the decision boundary, where would be the decision boundary? Looks like that it would be here. Okay, yes or no? It would be here. Yes? Yes or no? Because it want to minimize the margin. So this is the point that minimizes the margin. Is it fine? Yes. So this is the decision boundary that my SVM is going to give me. My question is it the right decision boundary? It is a, yeah, right, it is right, but is it the good decision boundary? Is it the good decision boundary? Anybody? Yes? Rachit? Atharva? Atharv? Nobody is telling. Shashwat, is it a good decision boundary? No? Yes? Let me answer this thing. So this decision boundary is correct. This decision boundary is correct because it is classifying the things into the right way. But this is not a good decision boundary because it is not generalized. Actually, what we want for one example, if we are bad, that is fine. But it should be able to generalize. Let's assume that I draw the decision boundary over here. So what I expect that many point would be there would be many points. Now our training examples are very less. We will be telling that many points would be there. Then for most of the data points, it is going to be correct if I draw like line like this. But if I draw the line like this, which I have just drawn, it is bad. It is not that good. Okay, it is not that generalizable decision boundary. Make sense? It is not that generalizable decision boundary. So most generalizable, most general decision boundary would come from this particular point. So now we are into the big trouble. How can we accommodate this? That if there is some problem, what we can do? So for that, there is a concept that is called the soft margin SVM. What it tells that when you find out the right classification, let me relax this condition. Let me say that minus eta I for some of the data items, I allow that there is some problem. Minus eta I. I say that I am going to allow some kind of discount on here. That if value is not 1, even if it is less than 1, I'm okay with that. I am allowing some kind of discount over here for some of the data points. We need that this value should be greater than 1 for all, greater than or equal to 1 for all the data points. But even if for some item it is not greater than 1, I am okay with that. So I'm going to allow another variable that I'm going to call as a slack variable over here. So this eta i's should also be included into this this minimization process, because here if I find out what is the summation of eta I for with respect to the I is equal to 1 to m for all the data item, if I see that what is the, because what is the point, if I draw the line like this, then there would be some slack with this particular point, but all other points are okay because their classification is correct. So this quantity should also, I should also minimize this particular quantity. So I can put it here that I want to argmin of this with the summation of I is equal to 1 to m slack I. Can you see this? That if I allow that there is we want to minimize this quantity by allowing this some slack variable. So what would happen, that then the things would get adjusted in some way, so that there will be, even if there is some problem, then we are okay. Make sense? So this quantity that is inside here, that is summation of this slack, here also we can put a constant c. We can say that c multiplied by this quantity I want to minimize. Why I have multiplied with the c? Because c is actually gives us a handle that how much importance I give to the misclassified items. So c could see this particular quantity that actually I'm going to put into this particular place. It could have, I'm going to put into this particular location. This quantity could be anything. If I put it 0, what does it mean? It is the same or previous SVM. that I'm going to allow some point to misclassify because of this thing, because of this setting over here, but I'm not minimizing that. So what would happen? It would be a bad kind of classifier. Okay, that is going to allow something to be misclassified also, and then it is going to find out the things. But if I put it infinite, what does it mean? If I put it infinite means I don't want to tell, I don't want to put, because any, if there is anything into comes, any value comes to this particular thing, because of this infinite, it blows up. So I don't want any point to be misclassified. It means that it is the SVM. It is one, again, it is a SVM. So it is the same thing that we are doing earlier, that I don't want any point to be misclassified. I want every point to be correct. But here, when I put it 0, I allow the points to be misclassified, but I'm not going to consider them for the modification of the W's. Okay. So this is a bad classifier. This is the SVM. So we want something in between. So you have to find out some value for the, I don't know, that depends upon the kind of problem that we are dealing with, that what is the appropriate value of the W. Sorry, C. So this is what the setting is. Once again, that when the data is not linearly separable, or there is a possibility of some kind of noise into the data, then going to the SVM, we can go for the soft margin SVM, where we say that we are going to allow some slack, means our decision boundary is going to allow some point to be bad in the interest of the generalization, where I'm telling that I'm going to have this particular discount from the classification thing, and this summation should also be minimized. Make sense? So this is called the soft margin SVM. Again, we can apply the same kind of linear programming methods to solve this kind of solutions. In the last class, we have also seen that that sometime the data is not linearly separable. One not linearly separable data is this. You know that what I wanted to say is this, that sometime what happens that your data, for example, the one kind of data is here, another kind of data is here. So you know that you can find out the decision boundary. But if some point is here, for example, some another data point is here also, so this data is not linearly separable. Make sense? If I say that there is some point over here, so this data is not linearly separable. But in this kind of setting, essentially you want this kind of decision boundary. But since there is one problematic point over here, so you say that I would shift this line over here and try to see that what is the how much generalization we can achieve by this. So sometime by shifting this line, we can get some kind of generalization. But in some scenarios, the data is not like that, that if you shift the decision boundary, it is going to give you any kind of help. For example, this data. In this data, you see that looks like that their negative examples are here and positive examples are here. So how can you draw the line? This line is not good. This line is also not good. This line is also not good. No line is good. You can see no line is good. So in this kind of scenarios, here we can see that this line is not good, but this line is good. But here we cannot find out those kind of lines. Very difficult. So this data is truly non-linear. We can say that this data is truly non-linear. So by changing the hyperplane also, we cannot get any great advantage. So sometimes the data is truly non-separable, and is truly not separable. So here small shift in the decision boundary would not help. So in those cases, we have to project the data into the suitably high dimensional space. So what is needed, that in these kind of scenarios, we have to suitably shift the data into the higher dimensional space. Let me give you an example. So let's assume that data is only one dimensional data. So let's assume that positive examples, one class kind of examples are here and 0 are here. Okay. So you know that suitably you can find out that this is the decision boundary. But if I say that there are more points, if I say that there are more points, more O's over here, and few crosses are here. Okay, can you find out the decision boundary into this particular case? Linear decision boundary in this particular case? Answer is no. So what you can do? You can do this thing that you project this data, because this is the x value, you project to the x square. So what would happen? This would go here, this would go here, this would go here. These points would also go here. They would also go here. Where this point would go, this would again go here. Okay, because they would also go here. These points are far away, so they would also go here. They would also go here. So if you do this kind of transformation, now you can find out this is suitable decision boundary somewhere here into the new transform space. Similar thing we have seen in the last class also, that if this kind of data is given to you, so you can, when x, y, two values are specified, you create one more value, that is z. Create the z by subtracting some constant and subtracting x and y constant from this, and then you taking the square. What does it mean? Subtracting some value means what? You are actually shifting the coordinate axis to here. You are actually shifting the coordinate axis. Now the coordinate axis is here. So again, if you apply the squaring of the two coordinates things, what would happen? That these values would be increasing. Okay. So the third, just consider the third dimension. So this is the plane. Consider the third dimension, z dimension, where I'm going to talking about the value. So if the center is here, so these points would be only at this particular place, but the points which are farther, they would increase more. Points which are here, they would increase this much. Find farther, they would increase even more. So further points are going to increase. So if I see from this particular direction, means xy plane is this, xy plane is this, and I'm going to see from the z direction. Let us consider the x, this y is this is x, this is y, and if I see the z direction, just see that this z direction, so these points would be here, but the faraway points would be actually they are above. So these kind of scenario we can see. So from the top you can see that it looks like a well, that all the points are actually inside. Okay, here you can find out that there is a decision boundary that you can cut. So all these points would be below these that particular line, and other points which are actually outside, they would be up. So then you can find out this kind of decision boundary. So this is called the data projection. Okay, this is the higher dimension transformation of the data. Okay, any questions till now? Now I wanted to tell you another thing that is very interesting, that is called the kernel functions. So recall this particular equation that we have seen in the last class, that what was a Lagrange value with the values of w and b. This is what actually you want to minimize. So minimized value comes out to be the summation of alpha i's minus half of alpha I, alpha j, yi, yj, xi, xj. What is yi, yj? They are two values, because you know that y's are the labels. So what is the output? Alphas, whether these points are uh, support vectors or not. This is an interesting quantity. In the last class, we have seen this equation. So this is an interesting quantity. What is this quantity? That I and j, two data items. For all the data items, we have to find out this multiplication. So what is this multiplication? If I say that x is equal to, let me take an example, 2, 3. Xi is equal to j, this, xj is equal to, I say that 5, 1. So what is xi, xj? It is going to be the dot, it is going to be the dot product, that is going to be the turn by turn multiplication. It is going to be 10 plus 3. It is going to be this value. What is this value? Few minutes back we have also seen that if two vectors are there and if we take the dot product, so it gives you that how much entangled they are in each direction, how much they are directed into the same direction. Okay, so if the two vectors are same, they would be entangled. So if this value is larger, means what? They are into the same direction. If this value is 0, means they are not similar. So essentially, this dot product is going to give you that how much similar those two items are. Dot products give you that how much similar these two points are. Everybody is okay with this? Sashwat? Multiplication of these dot point multiplication gives you that you can compute into this particular way. It gives you that what is the similarity between these two items. This value should be large. Okay, this value should be large. Means when they are more similar item, this value should be large. When they are not similar item, then the value would be lesser. This is what it is being computed over here. On all the data items, we have to find out this particular quantity. How can we find out this particular quantity? How much computation we have to invest? Computational cost is order of d square. If data is of the d-dimensional data, where d actually whatever d-dimensional data means n features, if there are n features, so it is going to take order of d square, or you can say that order of n square, because n number of features you have. Order of n square, it is going to take order of n square, because for all the items you have to multiply. And how come it is d square? It should be d, na? Because data is d-dimensional, then you have to multiply this. I think square is wrong here. It should be order of d. Okay, you have to spend order of d time, the d things over here. Make sense? I would check it once again. So, do you have any idea that why it is written d square? Looks like that it's a typing mistake. So let me recheck once again. But for now it looks like that, because d is the d items are there. Now the multiplication would be, what would be the multiplication? D multiplication would be there. It would take order of d time. So till now I just wanted to tell you that if two data points are there, if two data points are there, you want to find out that what is their similarity. This particular quantity you want to find out, you have to invest order of d time. Make sense? Now, few minutes back I told you that when x, now please concentrate, xi and xj, okay, they are, for example, 3 2 and 4 1. I'm just writing anything. If you find out that what is their similarity, xi and yj, focus on this. This is going to take some time and give you that what is their dot product. Few minutes back we have seen that finding out the similarity with these own values are not going to give you right kind of similarity. If you can transform the data into three-dimensional space, then you can find out better similarity. Hey, everybody, is it clear? Two-dimensional space, you cannot find out similarity in the right way, because you can see that data was not linearly separable. If you transform the data into three-dimensional space, then you can find out the better similarity. Can you tell? Yes? Yes, if you transform it to the three-dimensional space, then you can find out the better similarity. So here also, if I want to find out the similarity, so let's assume that we apply some phi on this particular item, and by this we get a few more values. By this we get for a few more values. By applying this phi, what I have done, that I have transformed this data from one space to another. Everybody is okay with that? If I want to find out that what is the similarity between these two items, I have to find out this multiplication. This multiplication is going to take more time. Why? Because earlier only two items had to be multiplied. Now more items need to be multiplied. So it is going to take the more time. Say yes. Say yes. It is going to take more time. Miloni, it is going to take more time. I am going to give you a special function f. I am going to give you a special function x, that if you just provide xi and y, x and xi and xj, I see xj, if you provide these two values only, once again, focus on this, what I'm telling, very important part of this particular lecture, that I am going to give you a special function f. If I provide you x and xj, it is going to give me that what is the value of phi of xi and phi of xj in in order of n times. Let's assume that it gives in order of n time only. Here, how much time was needed? It was more than order of n time. I am going to give you this particular function. So when x and y, xi and y, xi and xj was given, then you have to first convert this. It is going to take time. Then you have to multiply. It is also going to take more time. So if you want to find, because into the transform domain, if you want to find out the similarity of this particular item x, let me just, for the, don't confuse, let me say that this is the item A, this is item B. If you want to find out the similarity between A, you convert it to the phi of A and phi of B. This would also take time, and then you multiply, it would also take more time, and you get this answer. However, I am telling that I have a magical function f. If you just provide a and b, it can give you that what is the value of phi a dot phi b in very effective way into the same time, order of n time only. Would you be happy or not? Is it an exciting thing or not? Exciting thing? Yes? Yes? Okay. This particular function is called the kernel function. If this kind of function is given to you, it is called the function. It is kernel function, and depends upon the value of phi that we are going to see. So it actually simplifies. So in this particular equation, if you want to transform the data into the higher dimension space and then do the computation, so instead of writing the, at this particular case, phi of xi and phi of xj, you write f of xi xj, then that would solve your problem. Yes, we need to project the data into the high dimensional space. Why? Because it would better represent the data. Let me give you an example. Let's assume that this function is written into this particular form. Xi xj is equal to 1 plus xi xj square. Consider xi is equal to two item x1 and xj1 xj2. So what is xi xj? It is a xi, this multiplication of these two, term by term multiplication, plus 1. So I am going to write into this particular way. If you take the square, three things square, it is going to be 1 square, square of this term, square of this term, then 2 multiplied by this multiplication, and this multiplication, these three terms. So when I get these three things, I divide them into two parts. I say that this is one part, and dot with the dot product of this part, if the production, because you know that one can be written as a 1.1. This can be written dot this dot this can be written as this dot this. So first item is here, second item is here. This is this part and this part from I and j. From I and j. From I think two parts are there. So these two parts, and for the remaining parts are here, and 2 becomes under root. I take under root 2. This is the I and j. So I is taken over here, j is taken over here. Here I and j, I is taken over here and j is taken over here, and I put under root 2. So if I find out that what is the square of this particular quantity, this comes out to be this, where we can say that phi is converted into, phi of x can be represented into this way. So a data that was into the 2-dimension space is now represented into the 6-dimension space, and its multiplication is going to be obtained. We can see that mathematically we have obtained the same thing by doing this operation. And this is going to take, because this particular multiplication is going to take order of 2 time only, 2 plus just addition, nothing, and then just taking the square, and we are going to get the solution. Instead, if we transform the data, this particular data, if I transform this using this particular equation, and then I do the multiplication, find out the answer, I would be getting the same answer. So if this data, so ultimately, when I apply this is as a kernel function. Ultimately, what it means that I have projected the data into the 6-dimension space and find out their multiplications. So this kind of kernel is called the polynomial kernel. So polynomial kernel is going to be called as a 1 plus xi xj to the power p. Here we can, instead of 1, we can also put any number r, and here two parameters are there. P, what is the polynomial? Linear kernel, take the item, just multiply. That is, we are doing multiple times. That is not important thing. Polynomial kernel, you understand? This is called the polynomial kernel. We have seen that. Next important kernel is very important. That is called the radial basis function. Here, two values, when they are given, they are written as a e to the power minus xi minus xj square upon 2 sigma square. So here, but two values are given. You put into this particular formula and give me the answer. This is what the kernel function is. So why it is important function? It is important function because you can see as that e to the power minus xi minus xj to the square divided by e to the power minus 2 sigma square. So this is just a multiplying factor. You can ignore it. Just see this. What is this quantity? It is something e to the power minus x. You know that e to the power x can be represented as a infinite summation of the items. Okay, 1 plus this. You can see that it is infinite summation of the item. What does it mean? That if you, when two items are given and you find out the things into this particular way, essentially you are actually converting each the data items into this particular dimension and then multiplying and then finding out, converting back to the find out the answer. Means what? That if you put into this particular formula, it actually gives you a method by which you are going to transform the data into infinite dimensional space. See the power. So that's radial basis function are very powerful solution. They actually gives you, they project your data into the infinite dimensional space, and you know that into the infinite dimensional space, everything would be linearly separable. So you can find out the better SVMs into that particular space. So it is essentially projecting the data into infinite dimensional space. Similarly, you can find out the sigmoid kernel, where this is the Gaussian kernel. This is also called the Gaussian kernel. Another is a sigmoid kernel that tells that you put the tan h of, there is some variable beta 1 xi xj plus beta 1. You put into this particular way. This kind of thing would be more useful when you see that the data have various groups. You say that there is various clusters of the data. You want to find out that what is the right decision boundary, then you can apply this kind of kernel function. All these things are possible. And they actually make sense when this kind of when this kind of function actually satisfies a condition that is called the Mercer's condition. And this is nothing more than this: that for all the data item you create this. For all this data item, for all pairs of the data item, you create this matrix, and this matrix should be positive semi-definite. So actually, when this matrix is positive semi-definite, actually it inculcates some kind of field, and that is very much required for doing some reverse computations also. We are not going to much into the mathematical detail for this, but if you are interested, you can see this, that Mercer's condition need to be satisfied for any linear kernel. So then you can find out this kind of representation. So we have seen today that the representation represent the similarity between the input vectors. Kernel function represent the similarity between the input vector when they are projected into the higher dimension space. They are symmetric in nature. It brings efficiency and performance, and multiple kernel function could be composed to make new ones. And very important thing is this, that they should satisfy the Mercer conditions, that if you find out the summation of put all the pairs into, find out what is the xi xj, and you multiply with the cij cjs, they are the constants, so this value should be greater than equal to 0. You can find out the suitability constant so that this value is greater than 0. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for joining. If you have any questions, please let me know. Once again, I want to tell you that this slides actually gives you this idea. Let me give you in very simple words that what I did. Data was X. Sometime you may find out that you cannot find out the classification, right classification, because data is not linearly separable, and truly not linearly separable data is. You convert the data into the higher dimension space, and now into the higher dimension space, you find out what is the similarity. If you start doing this, you may not be able to do the things, because sometime a very large space need to be traversed. There comes a special kind of function. These functions are actually functions like that kernels. So if you deploy these kind of kernels over here, then you can find out the solution efficiently. Thank you very much. Thank you.